It's the King J, back with another video. Today, the Tekken team, Katsuro Harada and Koei Ikeda, they both done a Tekken 30th anniversary. I would say like a blog post for Bad and Namco. I wanted to check it out. We're here. Let's have a look at it. Let's hit the music. Let's see what's going on. All right, cool. First things first. Then it says Tekken 30th anniversary. Harada and Akeda talk Tekken behind the scenes of developing Tekken 8 and the mindset needed of a developer. So this is pretty good. I want to know what is the mindset. I've always been saying, yeah, like, you know, there's been a lot of accusations being thrown around about Tekken, and it's good to hear it from the people that actually are in the business. So let's see what they got going on. So more than a year has passed since the release of 3D fighting game Tekken 8, released in January 2024. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Tekken series, we interviewed series executive game director and chief producer Harada and Tekken 7 Tekken 8 game director and development producer Akeda. Harada has been involved with the series since the first entry of '94, and Akeda is a Tekken player turned developer. We asked what they learned from developing Tekken 8, about the culture of proactiveness in the Tekken project, and the mindset needed of a game developer. So a series first, starting from a worldwide console release. So this bit says, I have a ton of questions about Tekken 8 and the series in general. What are your thoughts looking back at Tekken 8's first year post-launch? Harada says, for previous games in the series, we would release it for the arcades first, add content, then make a home console port afterwards. But for Tekken 8, we decided to start with a worldwide simultaneous release on consoles and PC. That difference alone meant the feedback we got the past year was unlike anything we had before. Akeda says we need to think about how we would change things for Tekken 8, as Tekken 7 managed to sell 12 million copies. There was a need for us to design the game to satisfy the whole range of players, from casual to professional. Then the next question is, how does not releasing an arcade affect development? Akeda said it took us about 3 years to port previous Tekken games from arcade to consoles, so we needed to make the same amount of content from the very beginning. Harada says it also changed how our budget was spent. Before we spent our development Before we spent our development in stages, we would start with arcade versions in Japan and Asia, then the console version. And what they mean by the console version is that's everywhere else, like the Western side of things. So, you know, Europe, America, and so forth. But it always was released out in Asia first before it came over to us. So, yeah, that's what it means by the console version. Console version comes worldwide on the consoles and stuff like that. But this time we started with a worldwide multi-platform release. The difference was so stark that some people at the company were surprised at the amount we needed to develop the game. That's insane. Okay, so the question is, did it cost more than the total amount spent developing Tekken 7? The arcade version of Tekken 7 cost about 10% of Tekken 8. We knew that games were more expensive to develop, but I never imagined it would be this different. Akeda and the team did their best developing the game. I can't praise them enough. The next question, before both development time and budget were planned sequentially, I don't even know how to say that word. I'm gonna lie, I don't know how to say that word, but okay, so but you had to do all that in one go. That's a big change. A culture of proactiveness. Tekken team members learning martial arts for their fighting game. So Tekken 8 underwent a change in the business model with simultaneous worldwide multi-platform release. What other changes were there? Harada said the number of younger players has grown significantly. It just goes to show that your customer base changes when you change your business model and sales method. And then next question was, what's the majority age for Tekken players now? Harada says around 25, 26. So that makes sense, because yeah, I'm in my 30s right now, and I feel like a lot of the players from the UK now, they're in their mid-20s, late 20s. So yeah, that makes sense. So it says it's similar to other fighting games, but one of the big successes of the Tekken series is that there's a generational transition every 3 games or so. That's because, yeah, every Tekken game comes out every 5 years, 4 to 5 years. So yeah, a lot of players drop off. It depends. Like if you're doing this as a competitive player, then yeah, you're gonna stay on. But if you're not doing it as a competitive player, and you know, or you're not even winning or top 3, top 5, then yeah, people just drift off and then they just go and find other things to do. Older players knew about me and Akida. They would come to talk to us when we were at tournaments or at the airport. That's not the case for newer players, but that's also a good thing in a way. Yeah, they probably want their privacy and they don't want loads of people coming up to them and talking to them. I feel like it makes sense still. And I feel like the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever, I feel like most of those people, they kind of keep them to themselves anyways. I feel like they're more shy, whereas I feel like people from my generation, they kind of will just go up and have a conversation. So that's no shade or anything like that, but yeah, I've just noticed that in general, so that does make sense, and it's quite interesting he brought it up here. Next question. How about the developers of the Tekken project? Akida says, we had younger members join the team and they're pretty passionate when it comes to playing the game they developed, Tekken 8. They would play during lunch and we sneaked 7 teams into this Tekken Master Cup, a 5-man team tournament. Successfully introducing a new generation to the series is key for any long-lasting IP, and it's a topic we could easily spend hours discussing. Is the Tekken project's team culture the reason why the developers are so passionate? Harada says, we have all kinds of passionate developers. Some are passionate about the game development, others about martial arts. Members aren't strictly assigned to a particular role, and they're allowed to work on the tasks that appeal to them. That's crazy, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I am heavily into the martial arts side of things, and I feel like Tekken from Tekken 7 is kind of just driven away from the martial arts side of things. Obviously, we've got Reina, that's got Mishima style, which is kind of like a fiction style. Then you have like Victor that has weapons, and then you got Reina that's got like the Taudo style. I think is it Taudo? I don't want to butcher the name. I can't remember if it's Taudo, but yeah. So yeah, it is realistic. But then obviously you got her doing God Fist and Hell Sweep and stuff like that. So I would say it's realistic, but I want to see more characters like this, like more realistic characters. I think Lydia was sick. Fikrab is a good design. I do think Bruce needs to come back, and you know Leroy I think is a good character too. The design is the aesthetics, like his swag is like probably one of the best in the game, if I'll be honest. But yeah, no, I kind of liked the direction that things were going, like around, I'd say T6, T7. But yeah, T8, I don't know. There's still room to change, innit? So we'll see. So I thought that everyone had a predefined roles when working on a big project. Is that not how the Tekken project operates? Harada says the Tekken project is comprised of people who can independently look at something, think about it and make decisions by themselves. I also used to go beyond my capacity as a director or planner and would work on pixel art for UI, game art, music, and even direct motion capture. But people on other projects would be afraid of us because we work so differently. Laughs. Akida, when I was on the Soul Calibur team, I once asked someone from the Tekken project about tuning attacks to feel more visceral. My team worried about me. Asked how it went when I came back. Laughs. Okay, fair enough. It must be reassured to have so many people who are proactive in their work. Harada says there was something called the will mindset at Namco. It's the will mindset where if you want to do something, you take it upon yourself to do it. For example, I did something akin to leading the development team of Tekken Tag 2, but strictly speaking, I was not in charge of Tekken at the time, and the game's financial performance had zero effect on my position at the company. But nobody on the Tekken project saw what I did as stepping out of line. And then the next question is, that's because the Tekken project has a culture of doing what motivates you. Do you choose people who are highly proactive to join the team? I'd rather say everyone on the team likes Tekken, so they come to us if their own initiative, regardless. They come to us on their own initiative, regardless of the discipline they're assigned to. There are some people I headhunted from arcades, and they're still working with us on Tekken. Akira says some members even go to dojos for karate, Wing Chun, or Taido. So they could try various martial arts to make the game better. To make a game better, that's kind of crazy. So they actually do the actual martial arts to then tell us how to. Okay, that's kind of sick. Okay, I can almost feel some of the moves in Tekken when they land. I see that it's a result of the developers being proactive in their work. How is talent assigned across the project? Akida says most of them work on whatever they're good at. Even if you say someone is an animator, there's a plethora of things like body animations, facial animations, other behavior, and more. So people just pick out what they're good at. The team is full of full of people like this. So it balances out when you look at the Tekken project team as a whole. Harada says, out of all the projects here, the Tekken project probably best demonstrates that you get good at what you like doing. And then releasing what you made into the world, being motivated but to be proactive. Some may say that when you choose a job you love, you'll have a hard time handling the differences in expectations and reality. In the case of the Tekken project, members are probably happy that they get to work on Tekken, as it's a game they like to play, but you're faced with the reality of deadlines and quality standards. However, said, my parents told me the same thing when I told them I got a job as a game developer. But in the game industry, no matter how tough development is, you'll eventually finish and release the game. That's why if you like something, you can keep going even if the going is tough. Akira says, for a fighting game, you can go to in-person events and see people play what you've made. So that's another source of motivation. There aren't enough jobs where you could see the results of what you made as much as game development. That kind of makes sense. So I guess this is more about the development side of things. Like they're just basically talking about development side. So I'm gonna say, what would you say that the game development is better about it? So yeah, I don't think this is mainly for us. So we're gonna have a look at the other part now. So this is more on the development side. Working to make players. Yeah, this is it now. So I think we're around this bit here. Working to make players, shareholders, and developers happy. Now, the reason why this is very interesting to me now, let me slow down the music here. This is very interesting because this is where the issue lies in Tekken. Do you get what I'm saying? Like Tekken right now, it seems like they're trying to please everyone, and there's an issue right now of them pleasing everyone. We've got the shop. Why is there a shop here and it's only releasing the older items? Why is there Ghost Showdown, and why is there so many of these things in the game when we should be concentrating on actually getting the game balanced down to the T before we could even focus on anything else? But again, I'm going to read what is going on in this article because it does sound interesting. It does sound like they're doing a lot and saying a lot to us. So, from the developers aspect, obviously I didn't read all of it because I just don't think it makes sense for me to read that stuff in a video because it's not going to probably be interesting to you lot. But if it is, I will leave the link in the description below so you lot can go check it out. But yeah, let's see what else is going on. So, working to make players and shareholders and developers happy. What's important to keep in mind when working as a game developer? Harada, I always tell the people who work under me to balance the satisfaction of players, shareholders, and themselves, since we have to make all three of them happy. Some say that developers should just work harder, but you won't get to make your next game if you work too hard and run out of steam. Some people say that you should devote yourself to the craft and do whatever it takes. Are you saying that's not the issue? I mean, that's not the case. Harada says, when I was young, I said that you should keep going until you drop. And I even slept overnight at the studio for about 2 months once. I believe that I contributed to the world and made the game better by sacrificing my health. But I was only able to do that because I was young back then. The reality is that with age, even veteran developers start experiencing mental health issues. That's when I realized it would be a loss to everyone if the people who brought the creation into the world were unhappy. There's no point unless everyone's happy. And it's even worse when one person bears more of a burden than everyone else. Things were less clear-cut when I realized that. The amount of content going into the game has grown significantly compared to other games in the past. Some people say you can use AI to speed things up, but the human touch is actually something very important in this industry. Our current problem is how to balance the two. So, sold well to mixed reviews. Trial and error throughout the 30-year history of the Tekken series. So the question is, it feels like as games development gets bigger in scale, it also becomes more difficult to steer the game in a particular direction. Hardcore, casual, and all players in between have to like the game. We now have access to player comments on social media. How do you navigate the current landscape? Harada, that's a tough question. Things that sell have their fair share of lovers and haters. Hardcore players will rave over something they like, but when they say something negative, the message has great reach. Casual players, on the other hand, won't even post on social media even if they like something. That's why it's possible for a game to sell well even if the reviews are mixed. Then the next question is, so mixed isn't always a bad thing. Are there examples of where hardcore players were positive about a game? Akida, Tekken Tag 2 would be an example of that. Hardcore players really liked the depth that came from being able to control 2 different characters, but the feedback from non-hardcore players was not favorable. It was the first Tekken game I worked on, and I played the game before that non-stop. So I was really motivated to make Tag 2 a good game. So with that mindset, I asked for ideas from the team and incorporated the concept of having exciting battles by having control over 2 characters. We even made a mechanic that lets players do air combos while switching characters, which needed complex execution. I'm not gonna lie to you, I really want to do a video talking about Tekken Tag 2, because Tekken Tag 2 is the game that I would say competed for and took serious. And I feel like people have been saying, yeah, Tag 2 failed because blah blah blah, and they don't even know what they're talking about because they wasn't around in the Tag 2 era. So I really would do a video talking about that. If you ain't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and you lot will see that video come out in the future, probably next week at some point. But yeah, we definitely gotta put that Tag 2 story in just put it to bed, man, you know. Anyways, you thought that more depth would make fans happier. Akida says arcade income on release days was great, but it started to go down from day 2 and it halved in day 4. Even internally, there were fewer and fewer people playing the game during lunch. When I asked why, many of them said they couldn't control 2 characters. For a long time, the Tekken series has had compatible characters or characters that had similar moves and controls, Nina and Anna. But by the time we were making Tekken Tag 2, the characters had become more unique and there were less similarities. They also say, yes, I remember using King and his compatible character, Armor King. The 2 characters shared a more commonalities in how they played and controlled, and it made me more confident in playing. Akira says, it made me realize that I wasn't looking at the bigger picture. There aren't many players in the world like me who can execute complex controls. Worded differently, Tekken sells millions of copies because it's accessible to non-hardcore players as well. There were other examples of this. I started working on Tekken after Tekken 6, and when a senior developer asked me what the series needed, I told him a fleshed out practice mode, because I was thinking from my hardcore player perspective. But when we looked at the post-release questionnaires, many people praised the scenario campaign mode and the amount of content in the game, but nobody wrote about anything about the practice mode. That's why I decided to learn more about our players before starting development of Tekken 7 and 8. Harada, we managed to sell 12 million copies for Tekken 7, so I'm sure that knowledge helped convince everyone to come and play Tekken 7 after Tag 2. So then, this question is, did you have these issues with other entries in the series as well? Harada says Tekken 4 was the opposite of Akida's example, where the game sold well but reviewed the worst in the series. The Tekken games before it sold very well, and experience led to some misguided wisdom. We thought that if we could tangibly describe why Tekken was selling, we could feed that back into adjusting the game's concept and make something even better. So we conducted a survey for arcade owners, players, and everyone in between, resulting in a big table containing data like character usage rates. From this data, we discovered that people thought Tekken had too many characters and there were too many moves to memorize. The effects were too bright and it was hard to see. And Tekken games are always the same and never try to innovate. See, this is the problem. This is what casuals have been saying, and this is why we got Tekken 8. I'm joking. But anyways, moving on. Based on that, we shrunk the roster, simplified the effects, and changed the game mechanics for Tekken 4. But that took everything that made Tekken a good game. Sounds like Tekken 8. Anyways, moving on. Income at the arcades went down, but the arcades were still buying the boards since people liked the series up until then, and that meant higher revenue for the studio. Akida says, I also stopped playing Tekken 4. It just didn't feel like Tekken to me. Damn. Even the developer said that. That makes sense. I mean, I like Tekken 4, but yeah, I guess on a competitive aspect, yeah, it probably did feel a bit mad still. So anyways, no, sorry. The question is, I would think fixing the bad things would improve the game, but it seems that actually wasn't the case. Harada says, I consider it our biggest failure because it damaged the reputation we had built for the series. Another question is, was it wrong to consciously try to gain wisdom into the game and try to improve the game? Harada says, there's nothing wrong with trying to gain insight, but the problem was that I was so pressured to do better on our own, even though at the time everyone just wanted us to make something that stayed true to what Tekken was. By nature, people don't really look for the positive feedback. That's why for Tekken 4, I thought it was wise of us to ask about what was wrong about the series, but we needed to ask about the positives too, since there are both positives and negatives to everything. That's why Tekken 4, we lost sight of what made Tekken good. Right, Tekken 4 sounds like Tekken 8, you know, I'm not even gonna lie to you, chat. Like, Tekken 4 is sounding like Tekken 8. Like, it seems like they just lost their sight of what's going on, and it's kind of mad. I'm not gonna lie. Man. So it says, it sounds like Tekken series had its fair shares of hardships. It's commonly said that you're never too young to fail, so is it a good idea to experience failure when you're at school? Or rather, that would be best. We have access to more tools nowadays, so it's a good idea to try your hand at making something, even if it's small scale. People might hate it, and you might feel down, but it's better to have these experiences. People who have more of these experiences will know how to overcome their failures. If you avoid the experience to begin with, you'll never learn. I think that being able to overcome disappointment is a skill that's applicable to the games industry as well. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm just gonna chip in and put my 2 pence into that. That's how I feel like with just things in life overall. I've made a lot of bad choices and I've failed quite a lot, you know, coming up in life. And I honestly feel like there's stuff that's made me kind of like, if disappointment happens at this stage of my life, I wouldn't feel too upset about things. So it's kind of like, it makes sense what he's saying when it comes to like, just obviously, if you don't take any losses, you're never gonna learn. So never take an L as a loss. Take an L as learning. You get what I'm saying? So I hear it still. All right. Then the next question is, I see you can fail regardless of how well things are going. So it's important to know how to get over the failures. Can you give a message to potential creators to close off today's interview? So Akida says, I started liking fighting games since I was about 12, and I'm now a game developer because I had laser focus on my goals. Stay true to what you love, and when it comes to game development, find your focus. So when someone asks you what you want to do, you can give them a strong answer. Harada says, I think the younger generations need to do things differently from us. What I mean is, when I talk to young people, I get told any advice I give to them will not help them surpass the legacy my generation created. As AI and other technologies appear, I'm sure they will make games completely differently from how we're doing it now. The game industry changed drastically when new technology is introduced, so I consider it important to have the flexibility to change how you think and not be married to one particular way of doing things. Thank you for the interesting stories, is what's said by the question. And yeah, that's it, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to put my 2 pence in and just explain a couple things about that interview. That interview kind of just gives you like an insight of what they went through, the hardship. They didn't go in too much, but they said a couple of things. Tekken 4, I think everyone knows Tekken 4 had this issue, right? So that's a given. Tekken 7, Tekken 8. Tekken 8 isn't a bad way, but I think Tekken 8 can come out of it if they listen, right? This season 2 DLC, I can't see it being great because we still have to wait for Fakram, right? And Fakram is not until let's just say, I don't know if it'd be June, July, I don't know. And then we still have to wait for the next character, which I think is probably, it might be Lei. And then the one that's turquoise might be a different type of version of Marduk. Like, it will be a new character, but I think it will be an MMA character, to be fair. But it just won't be Marduk. That's what I think. You might get Marduk down the line or something like that. I think they're going to try and switch it out because of the leaks, personally. But if all goes well, you might get Marduk, Fakaram, and then a brand new character. It might be like that, but who knows? This is an interesting interview. Again, this is why I openly say to people, don't be going at Harada, Akida, Murray, because you just don't know if it's the higher ups that are saying things. You just don't know, innit? Like, it honestly seems like they just want to make the game great. And I ain't gonna lie, man, I'll still be creating the game on the sideline. I'm not the biggest fan of Tekken 8. And you know what? I'm gonna be so real with you, chat. I'm happy that I chose that decision to be open about me disliking the game. And the reason why I feel like I'm happy to choose that decision is because when stuff does go bad with the game, I don't want to be held accountable for acting like I like something that I didn't like. And I feel like a lot of creators, you know, big and small, were acting, even players, you know, they were acting like, yeah, the game's gonna be changed, the game is good, but that was to save face. And what I mean by that is to make it look good to, you know, Bandai Namco. No, you should just be completely honest and say that, you know, I don't like this, the way how this is, and explain why. You know, I feel like the next step for me after this video is explaining why I don't like Tekken 8 and what things can be done, and give some, you know, critique the game and make them understand, because maybe they just don't understand. They probably gonna look at someone like me that's saying, I don't like the game, fix the game, I don't like this, that, and the other, but I haven't given like a reason. You know, I feel like that should be the next step, just to kind of give a reason why I don't like the game. I have several reasons why I don't like the game, and there's several reasons why the game could improve. You know, the recent patch that they done, version 2.1, was good. It was a good patch. You know, it's a step in the right direction. Some of the moves, they changed down the numbers, but I think it's because of the combo value and how much the combos do. But like, yeah, there's just some stuff that I think could also be changed. But I guess they're just taking a look at it and seeing what stuff they can really do. And I don't know about like how intensive it is to upload or to even update a game. But again, like I said, if you can make Tekken great again, I'm around, man. I'll still be making content. I just don't feel like I'll be competing. You know, I missed Evo Japan, and I love Japan. I used to go Japan. I've been Japan at least 4 times. But it just is what it is. Let me not ramble on too much. I feel like I spoke too much. You lot that are watching the video, I appreciate you lot every single time. You lot know where it is already. We're approaching 90K on YouTube. Massive thank you to everyone that's been tuning in and subscribing, whether you're from the past or even recent. It doesn't even matter. I really appreciate you lot. We'll be on to the next video, man. You know where it is already. Keep it locked. Peace.